Informs, the largest association for the decision and data sciences, provides the following audio content to journalists for their use in reporting with proper attribution. What follows are 4 questions and responses from Rajiv Garg. He's an associate professor of information systems and operations management in the business school at Emory University, and he's a member of Informs. Question 1. Once a natural disaster like a hurricane hits, what are the biggest challenges for disaster recovery organizations?
The biggest challenge is correctly and equitably allocating resources to help people in areas that are more severely affected or impacted by the hurricane. Usually, data sources post-hurricane are sparse, sporadic, and noisy to develop a reliable and trusted relief and recovery plan. Now, we have a more innovative technological infrastructure in place, but they are not providing the rapid data right now to enable this resource allocation post-disaster.
Question 2. What are the factors that make funds allocation so challenging?
The two key things that make fund allocation challenging is accountability and limited budget. Fund allocation is dependent on traditional methods of appraisal of losses in the entire impacted area. It takes an appraiser anywhere from a few minutes to a few hours per property to assess the losses caused by a disaster. During Hurricane Katrina, there were 850,000 houses that were damaged. During Hurricane Harvey, there were over 200,000 houses that were damaged. So if you assume there were 100 appraisers working 40 hours a week, and on an average, let's just assume they're covering one house per hour, it'll take a whole year for the appraisers to estimate losses after Hurricane Harvey, or 4 years for Hurricane Katrina. So we need to utilize these modern technologies, data, the drones, the unmanned aerial vehicles, image processing, IoT, to understand these losses, understand the data to address these challenges.
Question 3. How can disaster recovery decision makers best prepare to ease the decision making after a natural disaster for allocation of funds?
The fund allocation should be done in phases by iteratively estimating the distribution before each phase. If government allocates $5 billion for relief and recovery, maybe decision makers can allocate those funds in 5 phases of $1 billion each. Decision makers need to accept that they can't do a perfect fund allocation quickly, but they can definitely provide iteratively those funds for rapid recovery efforts. We need, as a result, increased transparency of data and data collection from all possible sources. So it actually simplifies and puts them to ease their decisions post-disaster. Taking an example, after Hurricane Harvey, Texas State created a platform for public to post geotagged images of damages to residential properties to accelerate the understanding of losses in different areas. We need solutions like that.
Question 4. When proper systems and processes are in place for funds allocation in the wake of a natural disaster, what does the best possible outcome look like?
Now, when proper systems and processes are in place, I would expect that within the first week after the disaster hits, funds will start getting allocated to the social and vulnerable population in the impacted state. Those are the people who need more help during that time. This allocation will keep happening every 2 to 4 weeks from that point on, as more and more data is processed. And hopefully 80% of the funds could be allocated to the impacted population within the first 3 months after the disaster hits. The remaining 20% of the funds could be used to fill gaps in any estimation errors. We cannot be perfect, 100% perfect in those 3 months, but we can keep that 20% funds to cover those gaps. And if we help people get back on their feet faster, they will contribute to the economic recovery of the entire region. These recovered households, people, are also likely to contribute to the recovery of others as well. So we need to, using right processes and these systems in place, we can get to a point where open source analytics could be developed for policy decision making.
Please see the audio content release posted alongside this clip for attributions, soundbite length, and transcriptions. Any other questions can be sent to Ashley Smith, Inform's Public Affairs Coordinator, at asmith@informs.org.